Hello viewers, I go by the name Croffy. In this video, I am going to be glazing the ever-living hell out of Bendy and the Ink Machine soundtracks. Recently, I have seen some discussion about which of the two versions of the chase theme for the Ink Demon, Little Devil Darling, are better, those being the old and the remastered versions. Me personally, I am a big fan of the remastered track, but almost everyone I talk to likes the old track because it, quote-unquote, sounds scarier. And don't get me wrong, it definitely does sound scarier than the remastered one, but I think in the context this track is used in is what makes the remastered one a whole lot better. And also because it's actually listenable over the old version. So in today's video I spent way too long making, I am going to be discussing why specifically the remastered version of Little Devil Darling is not only the superior track, but how underappreciated it is. Fair warning, I may or may not go into some music theory stuff. Not that I'm an expert myself, but I'm still a yapper when it comes to music stuff, so get your popcorn, and I'm gonna get some water because talking for so long makes me thirsty. Firstly, let's actually listen to the track. You're going to hear it a lot in this video, I think, so you might as well take it in first. The first thing you'll take note of is how intense the track itself is. As soon as it starts, you're hit with an array of orchestral instruments blaring and crashing. The fact that this song starts off so intense right off the bat makes for quite the jump scare. It sets off some sort of alarm in your brain and kind of flabbergasts you. You normally don't expect that kind of stuff at the start of a track, but of course that's going to get old really fast, which is my problem with the original Little Devil Darling. Here's a short sample of the original Little Devil Darling for you quickly. Yeah, it's a whole lot more intense because of the constant percussion, but that doesn't really change the whole song that much. However, in the newer version of Little Devil Darling, the track is broken up into 3 segments. Forgive me if I use the wrong terminology here. A section, A prime section, and B section. The A section is, of course, the beginning of our soundtrack here. Similar to the old track, it's constantly repeating the same melody over and over again. The melody itself doesn't exactly go anywhere other than traveling literally one semitone, and that creates a lot of suspense, because the listener is anticipating when the song will change up. Not much is to be said about the A section, so let's just move on to A prime. A prime section, which I believe is a variant of A section in music theory terms, I could be wrong, so correct me, is when that very loud string instrument plays over the track. You'll notice that it has more variation than the original melody. It plays notes E, B, E, B, and then an A sharp to finish it off. It has that similar suspenseful feeling, but when it finishes it off with a different note, it often changes the feeling depending on the chosen note. In this case, an A sharp after a B is quite disturbing. It's unnatural, it feels weird and off, which is often used to create scary tracks like this. It removes all comfort, and yeah, that is just the same old "scary monster is chasing you" feeling. But this light of variety is kinda refreshing from the constant suspenseful and scary repeating pattern. What's most noticeable about this section of the track is the prelude / ending / tie into section B of the track. The melody changes, and so does everything else in the song thus far. It goes from the repetitive one semitone interchanging pattern, and it changes to play a different set of notes entirely, those being G sharp and G, which perfectly transitions into the next section of the song, B section. The B section is the track's ending section. It is what stands out the most to me in this soundtrack, actually. It's not limiting itself to the constant back and forth pattern anymore, it's actually changing. The notes that I played are the following: D, D sharp, E, and
F.
You'll notice that it actually keeps the one semitone note change thing, which actually works in this section's favor. The suspense that the first two sections built were all in favor to make this sound as threatening as possible. Because of such suspense, you're heavily anticipating what's to come the whole song. You've been waiting, and waiting, and waiting, until it changes. It sounds different, yeah, but you can't actually make it out at all that much. To the average listener, your brain has trouble processing the difference in frequencies because of how tight the changes between them are. It's literally one semitone apart from each other. And because this melody is ascending, it just gives off the feeling of something menacing, something that's approaching you, a predator in the dark. This is what I personally like to call the predator effect, which is when a melodic contour is mimicking the movements and motions of a predator, monster, creature, or whatever you want to say. It activates this primal fear in the brain that just tells you you're screwed. This effect is most known for being in the Jaws theme. At the end of the section, it returns to just being on E, which is kind of like the song giving us some breathing time before the song ends up looping again. Wow. I've barely finished the first section of this video and there's already over 900 words in the script and the video has been going for 6 minutes already. It's insane. But anyways, that's a basic rundown of the song's composition. In my opinion, it's far superior than the original's composition, because that literally stayed on one note the whole song. I know it sounds scarier because of the industrial percussion sound that repeats throughout the whole song, but it gets very repetitive after hearing it for the first few times. You'll kind of become bored of it. However, with the remastered soundtrack, your brain is occupied because the melody actually travels and goes somewhere. But that's enough music theory for you guys. I'm sure 90% of the people watching know jack of what I just said. So let's just get into some more understandable stuff. In total, you hear Little Devil Darling at least 2 to 3 times throughout the whole game. Chapter 3 makes it difficult because of the Ink Demon's multiple possible appearances in the chapter. For a new player, you'll probably hear it more than 3 times, but either way, I feel like the revamped version of the track works a whole lot better than the older in terms of storytelling. Maybe it's a bit weaker in chapters 1 and 2, but I think it especially shines in chapter 3. So we'll talk about chapter 3 primarily. To get you caught up in chapter 3, you have to annoyingly and tediously go back and forth doing these errands for Alice Angel. During these errand runs, there is a chance you may run into the Ink Demon, who will randomly spawn based on how much activity is going on in the area. If the Ink Demon sees you, the track starts playing and he will relentlessly chase you. Not only is he faster than you, but his aura makes it darker, and therefore makes it harder to see where you're going. But that also adds more panic into the situation, which is where this track shines. Music, especially in video games, helps to make the player feel what's happening in the game. It helps to connect. So when you're running away from the 6-foot demon malformed of ink and you can barely see in front of you, the intensity, dread, and fear this track makes you feel adds to the panic a whole lot. I've seen some cases where people have genuine adrenaline rushes when they're running away from this guy because of the soundtrack. If this was still the old track playing, I think it'd be a whole lot less threatening, especially since it's already been played 2 times before this in the game. Of course, the revamped track isn't free from this problem, but it definitely doesn't have it as bad. The old track makes you panic. The revamped track makes you panicked, but also makes you feel threatened. As stated earlier, the predator effect of this song makes it feel like you are genuinely prey running away from a predator, aka Discord. Also, I think a song with more melodic elements to it definitely fits the Ink Demon better, rather than some generic ass chase theme. This is the game's and story's main antagonist. He's constantly pursuing the player, and he's the guy you have to face off with at the end, so it makes more sense that his track should have more to it than "I'm scary." It also just fits the intensity of the scene in Chapter 1, because the whole building is literally collapsing. It's probably the weakest in Chapter 2 in terms of storytelling, though, because it's just you running away. Chases are only good for the first time you play them. If you lose in a chase, the next time you try it's not going to have the same effect. This was actually a lot shorter than I expected it to be. But besides that, thanks for watching all the way through if you did. You can probably tell I am super passionate about music and music theory and Bendy and the Ink Machine. I just felt like this game's soundtrack is so underappreciated. At the time the game came out, you might have thought it was like a cool soundtrack, but that's really the most anyone gives it. If you want to see more content like this where I break down tracks from like literally any game, then let me know. All you really gotta do is comment. I don't want subscribers, I've got plenty. 2,000, almost 2,000 is enough, so just comment or like. Just give the video attention, because these things are actually quite hard to make, so I didn't think it'd be that difficult. But either way, thank you again for watching, and I hope I changed your mind if you like the old version better. Bye bye now, do good, because it is good.